We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Cheapseat Reviews, a podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good.
The greater good.
This is episode 206. Still missing 204, but that's just the way it is. Episode 206. Yeah, them things will never change. Yeah, and tonight we're doing the Cloverfield Paradox. We frankly just couldn't figure out what to do, and I said, "Hey, let's just do that." So that's what we're doing. This is what happens when you, the listener, do not send in your requests. Yeah. I just literally do like a Russian roulette on Netflix, and this is what came up. So we're doing the Cloverfield Paradox because I thought, well, we've done the second one, right? We've done, Molly. We've done.
There's Miss Molly.
Cloverfield Lane, 10 Cloverfield Lane, which we all really enjoyed because it was so weird and different, and John Goodman was a bad guy, was great. And
what was he?
Well, no, he was a good actor. Like he was good in the role, but he was. I liked him. I thought he was good. He was the best part of the movie.
No. I'm going to say, was he a bad guy?
Well, yeah. He might. Just because you're right doesn't make you not a bad guy.
That's what my students tell me every day.
You're right. Jeez, Mr. Jemison, just because you're right doesn't mean you're the good guy. So, and then you're like, don't go out in the real world. There's aliens out there. Anyway, I am Shawn Allred. I forgot I didn't do that part. I am Shawn Allred, and joining me tonight is Andrew. Don't kill the foosball table, Jemison.
Foosballs for the devil.
All right, there you go. Weird little Waterboy callback. And Sam, can you give me a hand, Vector? If you've seen the movie, that's really funny.
Hey, Shawn, it's good to see you. Just so you know, my 3D printer is working, and as we speak, I am printing out a gun for you.
A gun with somehow that can fire plastic bullets. I'm not sure how those work, but that's fine. Yeah. Whatever.
They had plastic gunpowder.
That plastic gunpowder, yeah.
Well, that's how 3D printers work. They can really work wonders.
Yeah, you can also make apparently earthen elements with them too. I don't know. Maybe in the future we can, or maybe it's electronically fired. I don't know.
That's true.
Who knows? They just look like the bullets look like wire nuts. You know, like when you're putting like electronics together into these little plastic wire nuts. They look like clear. Those. Anyway, this movie came out this year, 2000 somethings. The Cloverfield Paradox, 2018, and it was so weird. Basically, during the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl, they're like, "Hey, here comes this new movie, The Cloverfield Paradox, and it's on streaming now." Like, oh wait,
what?
That's kind of weird. So is that good or bad? Does that mean that it was good that it didn't give people time to create expectations, only to have them dashed? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, because like this has never happened before. When obviously movies have come out on Netflix, that's obviously nothing new. We've done our Netflix originals, but usually even then, even Bright for the Will Smith movie had lead up. I mean, it had Facebook adverts and it had it on YouTube. This was literally like, hey, there's a movie.
Could you imagine?
No, you're right.
Could you imagine a theater saying, "All right, here's the preview for Avengers: Infinity War," and We're gonna watch it right now.
We're gonna watch it. Yeah, and it's in the next theater.
Yeah. Just get up and walk over there.
Just get up and walk out of this bad rom-com you're getting ready to sit through. So we'll do our normal kind of stuff that we do at the beginning of the show. I'm on the IMDb page for the Cloverfield Paradox, and I remember when it came out, people hated it. They were really mean to it.
Yep.
I was confused because like a couple other podcasts that I listened to, the hosts were like, actually, I thought it was fine. I thought it was a fine film. I don't know why people didn't like it. And he's like, I also liked Bright. So when he said that, I was like, oh, well, if he liked Bright and I like Bright, maybe I'm going to like the Cloverfield Paradox.
Well,
Did I? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know, honestly. There's a lot that I was talking with my roommate here as I'm still in Indiana.
he's still alive?
Chris, yeah, he's still alive.
Oh, good.
As he and I watched it together, and we were talking about some different things, and I was like, I told him about the Andrew Jemison rule, and that is, if a movie keeps your attention, then that gains points.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I'm calling it the Andrew Jemison effect. I'm just calling it right now. It's never been called a thing before until this moment right now.
No.
And I have to admit, I'm breaking ranks a little bit here by going first, but I admittedly pulled my cell phone out like 3 or 4 times in this movie to play Clash of Clans. So we'll do the regular intro. We'll just go from there. Andrew, what is the Cloverfield Paradox for those that missed the one commercial it had at the Super Bowl? What is that?
Orbiting a planet on the brink of war, scientists test a device to solve an energy crisis and end up face to face with a dark alternate reality.
All right.
Bum, bum, bum.
That actually kind of works.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, obviously, this was the first time any of us had seen this before. What did you, Andrew? I guess what was your initial thoughts? What did you think? What did the Cloverfield Paradox do for you?
I knew that after seeing the second Cloverfield that it was going to be weird. So I went in expecting weird, and we got weird.
Very quick.
Very quick. Yeah. But I don't know. It kind of, I didn't have many expectations, but the expectations I had, it didn't really meet them. I saw Baron Zemo and what's his face from Gotham.
Donald Logue, yeah.
Donald Logue, yeah. And 2 actors that I like, and other things they've done. And I thought, okay, this might be all right. But, I didn't really know what to expect. And my rule, like you said, is if it keeps my attention and keeps me wanting more, then I consider it a better film than others. But in this one, I don't know. I did not pay attention, but it's like it wasn't important to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's because I knew that weirdness was coming, so I was just like, yeah, whatever. Or I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like this was, and I think you mentioned it in our group chat. It was just Event Horizon, only a little better and a little less cheesy.
Yeah, a little
in
bit,
some aspects,
and a little bit less horror themed. A little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of expected more horror.
Oh, me too.
Feels.
Yeah.
And there were moments that I feel like could have been a lot scarier had they really wanted them to be.
Right.
And still could have been just as weird, but I don't know. Maybe there's some missed opportunities there. If that's, I don't know. Maybe that's not what they wanted.
I gotta turn that off. Hold on a second. The heater in the apartment, as you can tell, is freaking loud.
What?
Can you hear it? That's the heater.
Oh, really?
Thank you, Chris. It'll go off in a second. I'm here at the air intake or whatever it's called, the exchange. And
okay.
Like when this comes on, we have to turn the TV up probably 40% because it's so freaking loud. Sorry, you keep going, Andrew. I'm going to mute myself while you talk. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was pretty much finished there. Having said all that, I didn't not like it, but I don't know that I did like it, if that makes any sense. Okay. I feel like it was kind of lukewarm for me. And at the end, and I know we'll get there later, but I did not like that. Sam, I am.
What, the reveal or the
thing? This is the thing at the end.
We can spoil it. We'll get to the spoilery part in a second, but the ending reminded me of several other movies. But it also reminded me of the other. Okay, all right. Sorry. I don't want to jump Sam's thunder.
You can do it, Shawn.
But again, that heater is just so distracting. It'll go off in a second. I promise. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen who are listening on their iPhones. Is that the only thing that the three really have in common, right? Is that there's something crazy going on in the outside world, the outside of the purview of the people in the story, right? So that's one common theme. Second common theme is the ending is gonna suck, right? Have you seen the first one? You haven't, right?
What, the first? Yeah, yeah.
You saw Andrew, and you did. No,
that was under the bridge, right?
Yeah. So
okay, I'm not gonna say what happens, but under the bridge.
Yeah, there's a thing that happens at the end of that movie, and it sucks, right? And then the end of 10 Cloverfield Lane. Basically, we actually kind of want to see what happens to Mary Elizabeth Winstead, but her ending actually kind of is bleak. It's not hopeful. And then the same thing happens. Okay, there it goes. And the same thing happens in this movie, right? Literally, the last 3 seconds of the movie is to remind us that
nothing is happy here.
That they're literally going into a planet that's shit right now, right? So there is that. And Andrew mentioned, I mentioned on the group chat that like it's kind of an Event Horizon kind of a feel, but with less horror. And I think one of the things that people were upset about, again, I don't know, obviously, and I'm not going to scroll through the comments because that's a black hole of awful. I just don't feel like going down.
Excuse me.
Oh, geez, mute button. Is that, sorry, you scared the hell out of me.
Didn't know that was coming.
No, it's okay. No, you scared me. Is that like the first movie is found footage horror monster. The second one is psychological thriller. And I think people thought this one was going to be space horror, and we didn't really get that.
But they kept teasing it, though.
Yeah.
It's my problem.
Yeah.
That it just kept feeling like it should be, and it never came through.
Right. Like they couldn't make up their mind, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's why I didn't like it as much, is because it didn't really have a real identity. It couldn't make up its mind what this movie wanted to be.
Right. Yeah. Is it space horror? Is it a psychological thriller? Is it a survivor story? Like they couldn't make up their mind.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, I say they. I guess I don't know if it's on the director or what, because the director has done
such films as.
Well, every single one of them is a short film.
Really?
This was his first feature-length film. I'm not saying the word of the first short film he did, but it's a derogatory term used for black people.
What? Really?
That's the short, yeah. But he's done a bunch of shorts, but this is his first feature. He's produced a bunch of stuff. So, I don't know. Not everyone can be like Spielberg and hit a home run on their first film like Jaws. I get that. But anyway, I don't know. So go ahead, Sam.
Well, my experience with the film?
Yeah.
First of all, I just started it this morning, so I haven't even slept on it yet because I thought we were doing Spaceballs
Which we're doing next week, yeah.
And we'll do next week, but I watched that with my wife last night, so that was kind of fun. So I watched this thing at work, and I knew this was going to be it's obviously a Cloverfield movie, but it has that traits of J.J. Abrams within these things. I think he I don't know if he just kind of gives them some pointers and sends them off in a new direction, but you're right. It's basically Event Horizon taking out the crazy horror and adding more sci-fi to it. Mm-hmm. But my biggest problem, before I get to the problem, I like the way this movie looked. I thought the sci-fi was awesome. I thought the ship looked great. I thought the production values were wonderful in this film. The problem comes from we don't know the rules.
Right.
And certainly they don't either. But it seemed like the rules changed and made no sense. Certainly when they fired up the machine, it caused some sort of rift between dimensions, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what we ended up figuring out?
Yeah.
So it caused a rift, which made two dimensions interact with each other, and some crazy things were going on in the ship itself. But it seemed like the crazy things that were going on in the ship were more phantasmic, not gory, but horror-based, rather than, the only thing, how can I say this? The lady in the wall, okay, that's straight up horror. Right there.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole scenario is straight up horror. And I actually liked that idea. I thought that was great.
Right.
Especially getting her on the ship the way they did. But then when his arm got stuck, why was the ship why did it treat it like it was munching on it and then moving around? And it just didn't make sense to me that rift in the dimension would do that to him like that. I understood the worms transporting into the other guy. Okay, I can see that. But causing his eyeball to freak out?
And like, why were they talking to him and causing space dementia or whatever?
Yeah, so there was all these weird, very, very ghost-like, straight up horror, but yet the rules made no sense. It didn't make any sense to me.
Is there a low-flying airplane just going by somebody's house? What was that?
Not mine.
Yeah, that's mine.
I mean, is that like the government?
It's the
flying?
neighbors.
That's the neighbors?
Oh, yeah.
They have a helicopter? I mean, gracious.
So I enjoyed the movie, but I thought it wasn't as smart as it wanted to be.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. I was kind of in the same boat too. Is like they were horrific horror moments.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand when you're saying things like, well, two dimensions collide, and so matter is all over the place and weird. Like, okay, fine, I understand that you can kind of make up some rules, but some other rules should be fairly consistent. So, like,
yes.
Like, I was confused, like, the scene where poor Mundy gets it, and we all liked him because he was the only comic relief in the whole movie. Like, he's looking towards the magnet, whatever is causing the crazy magnetic thing, right? And so the magnetic, like, netting is reaching out, and it looks like you're sitting there watching it thinking, oh, it's going to stab him in the back and he's going to die. Yes,
and see, that would have made sense to me.
But instead, it pulled him back the opposite direction as if the ship was trying to kill him. And like when the ship sucked in his arm, it's like, okay, is the ship trying, or the space station trying to kill him, or not? And why did his arm get cut off, but he not, like, get hurt? Like, why is he not bleeding to death all over the deck? Instead, it was like he never had it. And then the question I asked of my roommate Chris was that, well, is that his arm? Or is that other dimension Mundy's arm?
Yeah.
Because how would the arm know things that he didn't? Like, how did the arm know to cut open Volkov to find the spear?
Yeah.
If it was his arm.
There's just really confusing things in this film.
There is.
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's the biggest issue I have, is that the rules aren't followed and there are no rules. really.
If this were more like Event Horizon, where the ship actually is trying to kill them, I could get it. I could understand that.
Yeah.
But it's not, or at least I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't need. Again, it's like, even if it was more of a perceived notion that the station is trying to kill them, but only because of the two dimensions are bumping into each other, kind of a thing. And I must admit, there's a Star Trek Voyager episode where this happens. This very similar thing. Basically, they go through some time blah 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 bullshit thing, right? As they make up stuff on Star Trek all the time, right? And basically, the two dimensions are just out of phase, like just barely out of phase, like when your windshield wipers from your front and your back don't quite meet up. So, like as a result of it, the things that one ship was doing were affecting the other and vice versa. And they were literally killing each other by accident because they didn't know what was happening. And then eventually they were able to figure it out. And the result was one ship had to die.
Oh.
They had to make a choice. And basically the choice was whichever ship in the moment, they said, okay, your ship, as a result of what's happened, is better off than ours. So you're going to have to make the sacrifice. And then by doing so, they did. They literally had to kill a whole crew so that the other crew could live.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's occasionally Star Trek has these actually pretty good episodes where they have to deal with these kind of morality issues. And the same thing kind of happens in this movie where the main character, Hamilton, not the play, but the...
Alexander Hamilton.
She has this crisis moment where she's like, I could go back to that Earth,
Her children,
and see her children and herself, and possibly save them. I didn't. I understand. The fact that the three of us have our children, we obviously can't put ourselves in the shoes of what would we do if we lost them, and then found ourselves in a universe where they still lived. But if the motivation was simply just to save them, then obviously before crazy tall blonde lady goes crazy, she could have just said, hey, find my family and tell me not to buy that heater that blows up the house or something, Anyway.
I believe it was an energy...
energy cell.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, for a world that is dying from a lack of energy, everyone had cell phones and drove cars.
I was going to mention that too, how it didn't seem like a dying world to me.
It really didn't.
Yeah.
Like even at least in like Lost in Space, the movie we watched, at least that world looked like shit. Like I get that one, And I was actually looking at some of the trivia. The idea is that the world will be out of energy in 5 years or something. I mean, the movie is set in 2028, I think.
Yeah.
So the idea that by 2032 we're out of energy is like, well, hang in there. The Earth now in 2018, like 25% of the world's energy is renewable. So, oops. Anyway. I'm saying, like, I mean, unless we've destroyed those things somehow, I don't know. And some of the other things that kind of annoyed me, like physics things, kind of annoyed me. Like
gravity. I mentioned that to you, I believe.
Yeah, you mentioned the gravity. Like when they jump from one sphere thing terminal to the next, she jumps and she comes down. Like, wait, what? She would just go off into space. But the other part was like when they finally find the sphere out of his belly, right, and they put it in the system, and then they find the Earth, right? They're able to track the Earth. That's okay.
What in the world?
A typical Andrew bumping his microphone. Nice. When they find the Earth, and it's on the other side of the sun, right? So, right, like because that's what it shows, right? Like it's literally on the other side of the sun. So we're talking about millions of miles away, kilometers, whatever you want to say. So when they find Earth, and they're like, oh, we'll just send a space pod down. You're going to be in that pod for months. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes us in our technology now, you know, months to send a probe to Mars. And Mars is a hell of a lot closer than the sun, let alone past it. So when she's like, oh, she's picking up transmissions from Earth, those would have been, I mean, it would have been a, several hour delay, but I mean, they could have communicated. But like that stuff kind of annoyed me a little bit. It's like, wait, hang in there. That's a long ass way. Like, I know in our Star Wars, Star Trek kind of thinking, we're like, oh, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump. No, that's pretty far. I mean, it still took us like 4 days just to get to the moon in the 60s, Like, so, anyway, whatever. It's fine. There was some other physicsy things that kind of annoyed me. I can't remember what they were now.
How much cooler would it have been if he would have been just stabbed through by the magnetic things?
It would have been better, and it would have been gory and cool, and you would have...
Yeah. Because part of the problem with space horror is making the horror relatable.
Right.
Does that make sense? There's so much about space we just don't understand, but we can understand suffocating to death.
Right.
We can understand drowning, we can understand being stabbed.
I can't understand drowning on a space station, though.
Yeah, like, was that all that water, like their water reserves?
Was that from their pool?
Yeah. Like,
was it another was that the other dimension's water?
Like, but is literally that water been teleported from Earth? Or
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird. Actually, now that you said that, Sam,
Yeah.
isn't there a moment where they realized that on their Earth, the second dimension Earth, the space station crashes? So maybe that's water from the other space station leaking into theirs.
Maybe so, yeah.
That would make sense.
I can understand that.
It would, and all it would take is one line of the Asian chick saying, when it starts pouring in, she says, "Why is this salt water?" or something like that.
It was salty.
Yeah, yeah, like the guy from Star Wars who has to lick the planet for some reason.
It doesn't. It still doesn't explain the num wall.
The wall eating an arm. I don't know. And like, this is the thing I was talking to Chris. Well, he's doing repairs, right? And they had to show us him putting that goop on and then hitting it with the thing and then it expanding and doing it.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 times. And I thought, man, that shit's real smart. It knows exactly what it's supposed to do. When it's on a pipe, it surrounds the pipe. When it's on a line, it goes down the line. Like, that's some smart stuff, right? And so they kept showing it to us, right?
Yeah.
And so Battery lost his arm the first time, and he's back there doing the same stuff. I'm like, I don't think I could do that. I think I'd have to find some like old like grandma like arm reachy thingy, and like try to do it with that.
A grabber,
right? A grabber, so that like if the wall decides to become carnivorous again, it's not taking your arm. It was so weird. And again, the fact that the arm like crawled around. And then
that was I was laughing at that. I couldn't help it.
And he put it in a box. He's like, "Be careful, that's my arm." And he goes, "Oh, my arm wants a pin." And so he was the best part of the movie. I wish I could have captured some of his lines.
What other movie have we seen with him?
The only thing that I've seen with him is it's a bit character, but he's like the boyfriend for about 5 minutes in Thor: The Dark World.
Okay.
He's the British guy that Natalie Portman's dating for about 5 minutes before Thor shows up.
Okay.
That's the only thing else I really know him from. And he's been in a bunch of stuff, but I don't know him from much. I do find it interesting that Askil Henny, the guy, the Russian dude, he was also on The Martian as an astronaut, which is kind of cool.
Typecast much?
Well, we had 2 Marvel connections, right? With Schmidt.
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, not Winter Soldier. Civil War.
Civil War. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Civil War. And then the tall blonde lady who was the gold lady from Guardians 2.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So
she was gold.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, she's the gold lady, the easily offended.
Aisha or whatever her name is.
Whatever her.
Aisha, something like that.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think that was that, right? And then we had, yeah, I think that was it for that. And of course, Donald Logue, who's of course in Gotham for a bit. Now I have to ask you this question. So the movie gives us this fake narrative that Schmidt is the bad guy, right? He's a bad guy.
Or in one dimension he is, right?
In one dimension he is a bad guy, but in their normal world he isn't. But he's still kind of secrety and weird, and the Russian doesn't like him, but oh gee whiz, a Russian doesn't like a German, okay. But like I guess, and I mentioned it to roommate Chris, and he's like, "Oh, I don't, it doesn't, that stuff doesn't occur to me," and it's probably just because I'm weird, because I know I am, and I overanalyze movies and TV shows. But as soon as I saw him the first time, I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna be a bad guy," because he was a bad guy in Civil War, and
Yeah.
I thought I almost wonder if they cast him to be this role just so we think he's gonna be the bad guy, and he's one of two people that live.
Yeah.
Him and the girl. So I don't know. I think that, I mean, like for years, as soon as I saw Gary Oldman, I was like, oh, he's gonna be a bad guy.
Yep.
And then the first time I saw him in Prisoner of Azkaban, right? I'm like, oh, he's
a
the
bad
bad
guy.
guy. Until the end of the movie, and then read the book, and I was like, oh.
I was about to say, did you read or watch those movies?
I watched 1, 2,
came
and
first?
3 first, and then read 4, 5, and 6, and 7 first.
You know, I did the same thing, I believe.
It wasn't until the third movie before they became interesting to me. Really, actually,
Yeah.
I watched
the first two were horrible.
I watched the third one first at the request of listener Billy. He's like, dude, you got to go watch it.
Billy.
It's actually really good. So I went and watched it, and I was like, well, I guess I got to go back and watch 1 and 2 to make so this stuff makes sense. Because for whatever reason, when we were in college, it was like you were either Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. Like you couldn't like both for some reason. It was
Really?
weird. Yeah, it was weird. I remember that very vividly. People saying, you going to watch the new Harry Potter film? Like, no, I'm going to go read Lord of the Rings because it's better. Like, oh, well, Gandalf would beat Dumbledore's ass. Like, no, like, okay.
Oh, dear Lord.
But those happen. Those conversations happen in the music building. I'm serious. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Lejeune was in the middle of it with on the Gandalf side. That would be an interesting fight, actually. Who would win in a fight with Dumbledore versus Gandalf? I think Dumbledore would win, actually.
I think so, too, only because we see more Dumbledore.
Magic. Like legit
yeah.
magic. Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong.
You know, Gandalf was also Magneto, so
That's true.
He does have that going for him.
He does have that going for him. And he was Death also in a movie once.
Yeah.
He was.
He was also Sherlock Holmes in a movie, wasn't he?
Was he?
he was, yeah.
He was Sherlock Holmes.
In
Yeah.
the movie
Oh, he
Holmes.
played. Well, he didn't play Sherlock Holmes. He played Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The movie was called Holmes, but he was
But he was Arthur Conan Doyle.
right.
But he lived an actual adventure, which he would base a story off of.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this was a $26 million budget. I thought it looked good actually for $26 million. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of CGI things happening. I mean, the only time I actually was like, "Ooh, that's some weird CGI," was when he was armless and he was kind of showing his stub around. I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of." You can tell that's a green screen sleeve he's wearing.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't have any problems. I thought that stuff looked good. The stuff on Earth was interesting. Once the paradox happens and whatever is unleashed on the planet, we're going to talk about that now because something is unleashed and you don't see it. Again, in typical kind of JJ fashion, you don't really see what it is until the very end. And
then you recognize it if you're a fan of his movies.
Well, and again, that's not the monster from the first movie. It's different.
Was it not?
No. The first one is like a spider kind of. Did you saw the Star Trek movie, right? Star Trek 09?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the beast looked like. That kind of weird crawly thing. This was like. You have to think about the size of the beast that it shows up at the end of the movie. They're crash landing in the ocean, right? That's what you do. So that thing is standing in the ocean, and its shoulders is above the clouds.
Yeah.
That's how big that thing is. That thing's taller than a mountain. which is kind of scary. I get why people are probably living in bunkers now, but it still seems kind of strange. So that's what I asked Chris. I'm like, so is this the prequel to Pacific Rim?
Well, it could be if you think about it. If they're talking about dimensions.
So, I don't know. The movie had so many good opportunities, but I don't know. It just seemed, and like the blonde girl, when she does her whatever, totally get it. Honestly, totally get her motivation.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, and we'd all do that.
yeah, kill
So
three
it's-
people to save 8 billion. Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Or the one.
I think I heard that. I don't know, on like.
About 7 weeks ago.
I think I saw that on an official Donald Trump Twitter once.
Don't say stuff like that. Oh my gosh. If Donald Trump starts quoting Star Trek, I don't know what I would do.
I don't think he would ever say something like that.
I don't think he would either.
No,
too
but all kidding aside, there were I understood all the choices these people were making.
No.
I don't think there was any dumb choice. It just the problem was just it was a fun house. You know, you didn't know what was going to happen next because anything could happen.
Right, and that's the problem. Like that was what made Event Horizon so cool, is because it's like, ooh, what kind of horrors are going to happen next?
Yeah, but you knew it was going to be horrors.
Right, like this one is literally like, oh, there's an arm crawling down the way. Oh, he burst out of worms, but for some reason they make him go crazy and his eyes wiggle. Like,
Yeah.
oh, and how was there a sphere in his belly and it not be bulging? And again, how did the arm know that? Is it like, can it talk to Thing? Like, did it know Thing and it can talk to it? I just realized I hadn't even looked at my show notes yet. But
Yeah. Well,
I did write things like food 3D printing kind of weirded me out a little bit. I did also write, it seems weird that they would build a collider in space, but then the guy says it's so dangerous, that's why we built it in space. And so it's like, okay, fine. We did have several. It's several of those. Yep.
wasn't the pretty much the opening of the movie an entire montage, if I remember right?
That's what a trope. Intro through newsreel trope, and then how do we get here montage kind of thing at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I learned, actually, I gotta find this website. I learned there's a website. There's literally a website that has a list of all of
like montages?
No. The tropes, movie tropes.
Oh.
And like they have names for them, right? So like the trope of bad to the bone, a badass song for a badass scene, or the bad guy wins trope, or I'm just scrolling down, fake action prologue. Seems like an action film, but it isn't. The fake out opening. So like there's literally a name for all of these kind of tropes. It's actually really cool. It's a tvtropes.org.
TV tropes.
Yeah, there's a movie one. Oh, it's the same thing. It's the same website. The movie. Wait, for some reason it sent me to The Simpsons. Why did it do that? That's weird. Oh, okay. Anyway, but you can like click on it and it'll give you other examples.
Huh.
So that's kind of neat. I like that idea. So sometimes when I'm looking for the name of a trope, I can actually just go and actually there's the next one. I did say ew, eye stuff. One of the clips I was going to pick is when he says, man, we're not in Kentucky anymore. It's Kansas. Who the hell cares? People from Kansas. Like, that was a cool line.
I thought that was good too.
The other one was like, where's the Earth? How do we lose the Earth? I don't know. It's big, blue, and full of angry people. I thought that one was kind of funny. And I wish I could have also got, of course, they actually said, Donald Logue says, it's the Cloverfield Paradox. Like, why is it called the Cloverfield Paradox? Like, what does that mean? What does Cloverfield signify?
What does it have
the
to
name
do
of their
with
space station?
No, the space station was called the something, Or was that was the space station called?
I thought it was Cloverfield.
I thought it was too.
Because the collider had a different name. Yeah, the Cloverfield station is a multinational crew. Oh, you're right. With the Shepherd particle, because they kept talking about the Shepherd. Okay, I missed that. Well, okay, that makes sense. All right, that's fine. Totally get that. There's also several other J.J. Abrams things. The gas station that they go to is the Kelvin, which is the same gas station that Mary Elizabeth Winstead goes to in 10 Paradox Lane, 10 Cloverfield Lane. And of course, the Kelvin is the name of the spaceship at the beginning of Star Trek. It's the name of his grandfather, and he puts it in all of his movies, Kelvin. Also, Slusho is a big J.J. Abrams universe thing. It's in all the Lost and Alias, and it's in Star Trek also. So anyway, it's a thing. It's his thing. So good for him.
Must be nice to be able to create your own little universe like that.
Right, Simon Pegg did it also. And Edgar Wright, they did it with the At World's End, or whatever, Hot Fuzz, and Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. Yeah.
So they did that too. I wrote Frozen, the girl from Frozen. Go ahead, Andrew.
What did you say?
I said, the girl from Frozen, because she got froze to death.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I almost looked it up. Does water freeze instantly in space?
So the trivia, not the trivia, but the goofs section says no.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask Google, what does water do in space?
Yeah, I wondered if it would really freeze that quickly. Of course, it'll freeze in
poured
space.
into space would rapidly vaporize or boil.
Boil, okay.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. The pressure. There's no pressure, which makes it expand or something like that.
Yeah, and then boil away. As the air pressure drops, the temperature needed to boil water becomes lower. That's why water boils much faster on mountains. So her freezing to death, no, she should have actually been like boiled to death, which would have been way more gruesome a death.
Yeah, which would have fit in line with not the Fifth Element, the
Event
Space
Horizon.
Horror. Event Horizon, yep.
Yeah. I hope you washed it off. Why did I write that? Oh, the gyroscope. Like gyroscope. Like, I hope you washed it off. That thing was pretty big. I'm pretty sure if I had the thing the size of a basketball in my gut, you'd know it. That would be so hard to see your family alive in the other dimension, I wrote.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that on the way home today. What would I have done?
Yeah.
If my kids were gone, but I had a chance to see them again.
And not even that, but save them, right? That's what you're thinking is you could save them, actually save them.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
And then I also, my last kind of dumb kind of thing that the movie did was, why would you make... So you guys remember that really bad movie where the guys have to take the spaceship into the Earth? It's like the anti-Armageddon movie.
The Core.
The Core.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in order to disengage the sections, right? First of all, poor scientist man had to go out into the core and hit the button, which was outside, and he melted to death, which is whatever. But basically, they could do it all from the cockpit, right? They can disengage each section. Mm-hmm. Why did David Oyelowo have to go into the section to release that section? Why would you make it do that? Like,
that is a great question.
Right? Like, if that's the only way to disengage one of the rings is from inside the ring. So I guess the idea is that the rest of the station is dying and you need to eject, but what if that part of the station is dying? Is that the only way to eject? Somebody's got to stay?
She said something like, we can do that from this side, but he said the only way, or I don't know if it had something to do with the timing. Like, I don't know, but she made the comment.
Did she?
Yeah, she said we can do that from here.
Okay, admittedly, the heater probably came on, and I didn't hear it because that happened. Honestly, that happened several times, And there were several moments where the accents were hard for me to hear. Again, this is a shit TV I'm watching it on, bad speakers. And so if that line was said, then good on them for saying the line. We could do it from here. Oh, that system's broken. We have to do it manually. Fine. If that line was said, then I missed it, and that's on me. And my Dynex 30-inch TV.
Dynex, love it.
Anyway, the other tropes I wrote was the main character loses kids, and then I wrote the fixin' montage where they got to repair the ship. Yep. I'm not gonna play it again, but that's okay.
And now for some more bad news. Ready?
Again, I apologize for not having clips. Without having my laptop here, I can't record clips to my phone to play them for the show.
Oh.
So for the next 2 weeks, there's no clips. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. Because I could sync my phone to the laptop I'm using, but then it would erase what's on my phone, and I don't have the rest of the show on my phone or on this computer. So I can either play clips or the intro and all the other music. So I made that choice. Trivia. Though this movie takes place in 2028 and the prior films take place way before J.J. Abrams said that way before, J.J. has said that he has a plan on how all the Cloverfield movies and future ones will be tied together. And Simon Pegg is the voice on the radio at the beginning of the movie saying how the particle accelerator can solve the world's energy crisis. That's kind of fun.
They must be friends.
Oh, they have to be.
You know?
Yeah. Hey, you want to be Scotty? Hell yeah. Right on, let's do it. You know. Hollywood's very incestuous. You know, they work with people that they know. I mean, that's why freaking
Wouldn't you too, if you could?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you get someone that you know is going to do a great performance, I mean, that's why with Christopher Nolan likes to use the same people over and over again. That's why that guy who was the freaking Scarecrow has been in 2 of the Batman movies and Dunkirk and Inception. Yeah. I mean, he likes his guys, Christian Bale and all that stuff. So there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's
nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with it. Just Hollywood's very incestuous. It's very fun. That's actually the trivia. There wasn't much trivia on this movie that was really worth noting, honestly.
Yeah, it's so new. I don't know if, and it just wasn't received as, people aren't pining over it to find trivia.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, because a lot of the trivia comes from, and there's also a lack of trivia because there's no DVD box set that you can get with the.
That's true too. I didn't even think of that.
With the director's commentary, saying that when we filmed this scene, he farted and they all giggled. There's none of that. So yeah, there's that. So I guess that then ties us on over to this thing here.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
I know this show is seeming like it's going by pretty fast, but again, without clips, it kind of hurts us a little bit. I apologize. We decided to do J.J. Abrams flicks. Now, we're not doing just J.J. Abrams directed, because obviously he didn't direct this. He produced it. So we're going to do anything that he has been associated with film-wise. I guess unless one of you guys picked Lost. That's fine, too. Andrew.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say the number 3, Super 8.
I do like Super 8.
That's a great little movie.
Super 8 was basically his audition tape.
For what?
For everything else he's done.
For everything else he's done since. Star Trek, Star Wars.
You think so?
Oh God, dude, that was a love letter to Spielberg.
It was a love letter to Spielberg. But I never thought of it as his audition reel, personally.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is kind of a love letter to Spielberg. And for some reason, I thought he did Star Trek before he did Super 8. But I guess I'm wrong. Super 8 was in the 2011. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Super 8 was after Star Trek.
Yep.
2011. So, but you're still not wrong. It is a love letter to Spielberg. I mean, basically, it's like the horror version of like Ready Player One, like which is
Yeah.
which is a homage to all things 80s and whatever. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. Number 2 is actually, it was, I guess you would call it a mini series on Hulu, I think, called 11/22/63.
Oh yeah.
About
I read that book.
JFK.
Is it good?
Oh, it's wonderful. James Franco is the main character.
The book was amazing. A Stephen King book that I actually read it all the way through.
Yeah, and it's really, really good. And I think he directed all the episodes.
No, he didn't direct them.
I think there's 8.
I don't think he directed
Do you know?
them, but he
I don't remember. He had his golden touch on it somehow. And then The Force Awakens, number 1.
executive producer. Yeah, he produced them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let me just double check director. No, he didn't. What? Oh, okay. Yeah, basically his last his movies are basically Star Wars or Star Trek, and then Super 8 for a bit. All right, Sam.
All right, I've honorable. I thought we were just doing movies, but I've got an honorable mention for Lost,
That's fine.
and the brilliance that was behind that show is just awesome.
Never watched 1 minute of it.
Yeah, I really think you'd like it. I
Okay.
really do. So I had that as an honorable mention. Then I had the original Cloverfield, the found footage, which didn't make me want to throw up, which was kind of nice.
That is nice, yeah.
Compared to most found footage stuff. My number 2 was Super 8, and my number 1 was Force Awakens. If someone can come in and reboot Star Wars and do it well, golly, with all the expectations and everything else, heaped on him for that movie, wow.
Well, and you got to think about the pressure that he has to be on. I mean, he reboots Star Trek, and then reboots Star Wars.
Yeah.
Not reboots, but he rebooted Star Trek, but then continued Star Wars.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think he nailed them both.
Yeah.
Really did. I mean, I know the new Star Wars is more Star Trek is more Star Wars than kind of original Trek, but that 09 film is still great. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite of the 3, but it's still a really fine film. My number 3 would be The Force Awakens, which is and honestly, it's actually it should be my number 2. It's actually my number 2. My number 3 is going to be Mission Impossible 3. I just love that movie so much. I know we did it for the show, saying you have your little physics issues, but I still love the film. Number 2 would be The Force Awakens, which also has physics issues. But like stars and being sucked up and planets not freezing to death, but whatever. And then my number 1 has got to be Star Trek. It has to be. So
He's done some really great TV shows too.
actually, I
Yeah.
guess if we're doing producer role, I'll actually say Star Trek Into Darkness, or not Into Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, because that's my favorite of the 3, and he produced
I
it.
didn't
Is
like
that
it.
the newest one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you didn't. It made you think too much, Sam, and that's why you didn't like it.
No, it didn't. I
It
thought
was
it was.
It was more Star Trek than the other
It was.
two.
It was way more Star Trek than any of the other 3.
Yeah. His TV shows though are really good. The Revolution and Fringe. I don't know if you ever saw those.
I loved Fringe. Yeah,
Yeah,
Fringe
those
was
two
great.
were great shows.
Yeah, Fringe was great. I watched that one. I watched it up until the last season because it got too weird.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally an episode where they turn into cartoons.
What?
I'm serious. They basically JJ wanted to find a way to get Leonard Nimoy involved, and so Leonard Nimoy was like a doctor friend of the crazy doctor guy. But Leonard was, he was in his 90s, so he was kind of done with doing action. So they literally said, they put them in to a computer program, and they had CGI Leonard Nimoy and CGI other characters as they went looking for a thing. That was kind of both great because it was Leonard Nimoy and awful because it was kind of jump the sharkish. But Yeah, like Fringe got too weird about a show about weird, you know. All right. Anyway, so I guess that's kind of it, right? I know it was a short episode, but
Yeah,
we're not even.
there's not much to say. There was the best part about the movie was the comedian guy,
Yeah.
and just he kept going on and on about his lost arm.
Yeah. No, he was great.
Yeah, but it didn't have that extra special thing you're looking for in something like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot he's producing that new Mission Impossible movie. Fallout. That's the new one that's coming out. Ooh, there's already a trailer. I've already seen the trailer. That's right. He's flying the helicopter and almost crashes into a tank. But it's got Simon Pegg, so there you go. Well, I like those movies. The Mission Impossible movies. I think they're pretty much from 3 on have been great. In my opinion. 2 was awful. 1 was fine.
Too many masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and too many pigeons. Freaking John Woo. All right, well that's it. So let's do this now because we keep kind of screwing up. Next week we are doing. Next week we're doing Spaceballs.
Yes,
it was a listener requested episode. We're gonna do Spaceballs. I'm pretty excited for it because it's very silly. It's on Amazon. I know sometimes it's hard to do comedies for the show to critique it. So basically, it's going to be the 3 of us just saying, "Hey, this was," or 4 of us. Sorry, Corey.
This was so funny.
This part was funny. This part was funny. So we're going to do like we did with Blazing Saddles and say what parts worked and what parts don't, because there might be parts that are just not funny anymore. So I guess we'll find out on the slate. Now I must admit I don't know how this got on the list. Because I don't know how. Moonrise Kingdom is on after that, and I don't know if that was one of you guys or if that was a listener request.
I've never heard of that.
That's a Wes Anderson
It's
movie,
a Wes
isn't it?
Anderson film, and his movies are freaking weird. Like
Some of them are nice.
He just did that
weird.
Isle of Dogs movie, and that just looks just creepy. So anyway, I know we're not done. We still have to do our out of 10, but I just So next week we'll do Spaceballs, and then the following week we'll have to kind of feel out how we want to do that. But we do have some really great films on the list. We have The Arrival, The Siege of Jadotville.
I actually saw that. I put that on the list.
Yeah.
And it's a surprisingly good one.
We do have.
I think.
We have a lot of, honestly, for whatever reason, we have a lot of like very serious films like in the list, like Ex Machina, Lincoln, and then we kind of fall off with the wagon a little bit with Tammy and the T-Rex and Little Shop of Horrors,
Little shop.
Tropic Thunder.
Oh yeah, it's with your favorite actor.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. So, haha, you didn't think I was going to say that. Anyway.
What do you mean, you?
Right. So anyway, let's do our. I gotta pull my phone back out. Let's do our out of 10 here. We'll do that real quick. If I can find my iTunes. Jeez, I don't know why it was closed. Here we go. Bam.
Wait, what's supposed to happen?
All right, out of 10. This is where you guys tell me what you would give this score of. Andrew.
If it made more sense, if it knew what it was meant to be, and maybe after JJ brings all this together later on in the future, and I see how this film was supposed to work, the score may go higher. But for right now, this is going to sit at a 4.3.
Okay. By the way, since Corny's not here tonight, we haven't really had a really bad pun yet, and so I'm coming up with one. So I'm giving you the pun. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the preemptive pun strike. Okay. Did you guys know that this movie was based on a book? It's called Farewell to Arms.
Oh.
There you go.
But
I know, right? I mean, that's the best I can do. Corny's better at it than I am.
Oh, that's bad.
I know it was bad, but at least it was somewhat. I think it was somewhat clever. Anyway, farewell to arms. When they came back, I guess they left the arm up there, right? I guess is it still in the
Dude,
space station?
I would completely keep that arm with me.
Right?
I'd be like, "Come on, arm! It's
Put it
there.
on a leash.
Well, wouldn't
Yeah.
you like take it back and say, "Hey, scientists, figure this out"?
Yeah,
And
right.
they'd be like, "There's a 800-foot monster over there, and this is what you want us to figure out." Yeah, start building robots to punch them in the face. Anyway, Sam.
All right. I totally agree with Andrew in terms of I don't think the movie exactly knew what it wanted to be. It wanted to be horror, but didn't want to be over the top horror. But I think I enjoyed it a little bit more. I don't want to watch it again, but it's a pretty movie. I like the way it looked. I'm going to give it a 5.6 out of 10.
Okay. That's a fine score. I'm going to give it actually probably closer to Sam than Andrew for some of those same reasons. Like I liked the concept of there's a particle thing happens and it screws up and maybe this is why the world is kind of the way it is. I mean, Donald Logue says that this thing could wreck things for the future and the past. So maybe this is the reason why the aliens show up in Cloverfield Lane, and this is why the big monster shows up, 15 years in the past. It's like why these things
That's also why Trump was elected president.
Yeah, so these weird things happen. So the concept was great. Execution was a little hit or miss, but
You wonder what if JJ would have done it himself, how it would have gone down.
yeah, well, there would probably have been a very different cast too. What you think?
Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't have been a $26 million Netflix thing. It would have been a $100 million feature film.
Yeah.
So
Did you hear the joke that they're putting in the sequel? There are currently 8 planets, but I'm about to destroy Uranus.
nice. Maybe in their version, in their universe, their dimension, Pluto is still a planet. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 6. Just a 6. Just a straight up 6. No, I can't. Dang it. I have to give it a 6 point something.
Why?
Because it gives the average to a 5.3, and I'm sure we have probably 13 movies that are 5.3. So I'm going to give it a 6.1. So that gives it a 5.33 repeating. So at least it'll affect the ranking a little bit better. That's it. That's our show. Thank you for listening. Again, sorry if this one's short, but when I'm on the road,
It is what it is. Yeah, it's hard.
She said.
things are a little weird. Both the shortness and the hard part. I think they both work there. Sorry, it's both short and hard. But yeah, it's just kind of the way it is. Anyway, so yeah, next week we're doing Spaceballs. That'll be very fun to do. In the meantime, leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, and all those other places. I will be doing an Anchor cast with Sam tomorrow.
No, you won't.
It's happening. It's going to happen. Somehow we'll make it happen. The website's down.
Yeah.
And frankly,
if anybody would like to host us,
it might be down indefinitely. So to be determined. But frankly, I don't really know how many people use the website anyway. I don't know. I
I
just don't-
spent time on that crap.
What?
I spent tons of time on that crap.
I know, and I appreciate it. I wish you had time to go back to make the posters with our faces on them. I wish you had time to do that again. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Facebook.com/Cheapseat Reviews is still working, and so is our Twitter channel at CheapseatCast. And of course, you can send us emails to cheapseatreviews@gmail.com. The request for Spaceballs came through Twitter. So however you want to get us
And see how fast we did that, folks. If you give us something that you want us to do, we will do it as quick as we can.
unless it's a movie that's not easily streaming like Juno, in which case I will just sit on for over a year. Because that's happened. But yeah, next week will be Spaceballs. Then we'll figure out if we're going to do Moonrise Kingdom or something less weird. I don't know. Anyway, that's it.
Siege. Let's do Siege after that.
Siege.
That's a good one. Siege of Jeddah.
Oh yeah. I was like, The Siege. That's a good movie. I like that movie. It's a Denzel Washington, Bruce Willis flick. Different kind of movie. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's the show. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your support. And on behalf of Corny, Andrew, Sam, this is Shawn saying thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Joe Pesci.